My son took me out on a false excuse, and then he left me there, all alone. That is how my story begins. At 68 years of age, I never imagined I would say such words. A father is supposed to be cared for in his final years, not abandoned like unwanted baggage. Yet this is the truth of my life. That morning, my son, Daniel, came into my room with a smile that I now realize was rehearsed. He said, "Daddy, you've been feeling weak lately. There's a new hospital in the city. They have the best doctors. Let me take you there for a checkup." I felt warmth in my chest. A part of me was proud. My son remembered my health, my struggles with blood pressure, my aching knees. For years, I had dreamed of such care from my children. I trusted him. I trusted him with the blind faith only a parent has. I got ready quickly. I wore my clean shirt, the one I used to wear on Fridays for prayer. I took my small bag with my medicines, thinking it would be a short visit. Daniel helped me into the car, even opening the door for me. "Don't worry, Daddy," he said. "Everything will be fine today." As the car rolled through the streets of our town, memories flooded me. I remembered when Daniel was just a little boy, sitting in this same car seat, asking me endless questions about the world. I remembered stopping by roadside stalls to buy him sweets, even when I had no money for myself. My heart felt light that morning. I thought, this is what life is about, raising children who will carry you when your legs fail. But life had a cruel twist waiting. We reached the city after an hour. Instead of turning toward the hospital, Daniel parked near a crowded bus station. I asked him, "Why here, son? The hospital isn't in this direction." He replied quickly, almost too quickly, "Oh, Daddy, I just need to get the tickets first. You sit here and rest. I'll be right back." He guided me to a wooden bench near the entrance. The crowd was buzzing. Vendors shouting, children crying, buses honking. I sat there with my bag on my lap, waiting. Daniel gave me a quick hug, kissed my forehead, and said, "Wait here, Daddy. I'll just return in a few minutes." I smiled and nodded. I had no reason to doubt him. Minutes turned into half an hour. Half an hour turned into 1 hour. People came and went. The sun shifted in the sky. My eyes searched the crowd for Daniel's face, but it never appeared. I tried calling his phone, switched off. I tried again and again, but the same robotic voice greeted me. "The number you are trying to reach is currently unavailable." A cold fear crawled into my chest. My hands trembled as I clutched my bag. I wanted to believe he was just delayed. Maybe he had gone to get water. Maybe the ticket line was long. But deep down, a darker thought whispered, "What if he is not coming back?" I shook my head, refusing to believe it. A father does not want to think such thoughts about his own child. But hours passed. The crowd began to thin. The vendors started closing their stalls. The sun sank, painting the sky with orange and red. And I was still on that bench, alone. I remember a kind stranger sitting next to me. He asked softly, "Babaji, who are you waiting for?" I forced a smile and lied. "My son went to buy tickets. He'll be back any moment." But my throat burned with unshed tears as I spoke. Night arrived. The bus station grew quieter. The wooden bench felt harder under my frail body. My heart finally admitted what my mind had been fighting all along. Daniel had abandoned me. I closed my eyes, and memories stabbed me like knives. I remembered selling my land to pay his school fees. I remembered working double shifts just to buy him a new bicycle. I remembered nights when I ate only half a piece of bread so he could have a full meal. Every sacrifice replayed in my head like a cruel movie. And now, the very boy for whom I had given everything had discarded me like trash. Tears streamed down my face. I whispered to myself, "Why, son? Why would you do this to your daddy?" A station worker noticed me crying. He came over and said, "Old man, it's too late to wait outside. Come rest inside." He gave me an old blanket. His kindness only deepened my pain. A stranger showed me compassion, while my own blood had left me in the dark. That night, as I lay on the bench with the rough blanket over me, I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my heart breaking with every beat. But amid the pain, a strange fire was born inside me. This was not the end. This betrayal would not go unanswered. That night, on the cold wooden bench, was the longest night of my life. I pulled the thin blanket tighter around my shoulders, but it could not warm the hollowness inside my chest. My body ached, but my heart ached more. My son had walked away with my trust, and with it, the last piece of strength that had kept me standing. I lay awake, staring at the broken ceiling of the bus station. Every creak, every rustle, every distant horn reminded me that I was no longer safe in the embrace of my home. I was now just an old man among strangers, invisible to the world, forgotten by the very child I raised with my blood and sweat. The worker who gave me the blanket checked on me once more. "Old man, you should eat something. There is a tea stall nearby," he said kindly. I nodded but could not find the courage to move. My throat was tight and my eyes burned with shame. I had always believed that no matter how cruel the world became, my family would never abandon me. But here I was, proof that even the deepest faith can be shattered. By dawn, hunger gnawed at my stomach. My knees trembled as I rose from the bench. With slow, unsteady steps, I walked toward the tea stall. The vendor looked at me with pity when I asked for a cup of tea and a piece of bread. I searched my pockets and realized I had only a few coins left, barely enough for one meal. As I sat on a small stool, sipping the hot tea, my hands shook, not just from weakness, but from the storm raging inside me. Questions attacked my mind like arrows. Why did Daniel do this? Did I fail as a father? Did my sacrifices mean nothing? I remembered the hospital excuse. The words "checkup" echoed like cruel mockery. He never wanted to take me to a doctor. He only wanted to rid himself of me. I was not his daddy anymore. I was just a burden, too heavy to carry. Tears rolled down my cheeks. The vendor noticed, but said nothing. Sometimes silence is the only kindness one can give. Days passed. I spent my mornings sitting on that same bench, watching the buses come and go, hoping, against all reason, that Daniel would return. Every evening, when the station grew quiet, I curled under the blanket and prayed to God for strength. But each sunrise crushed that hope a little more. One afternoon, as I sat in despair, a young man came and offered me food. He was a college student, rushing to catch his bus. He said, "Here, old man, you look hungry. Take this sandwich." I stared at him, my lips trembling. I wanted to refuse, but my hunger betrayed me. I took the sandwich, whispered a broken "thank you," and ate. The kindness of strangers began to keep me alive. Yet the wound inside me grew deeper. At night, when the world slept, I remembered the days when Daniel was a child. I remembered teaching him how to write his first words, holding his bicycle as he learned to ride, staying up late during his fevers. I remembered how I worked in scorching sun and freezing cold, just so he could wear clean clothes and walk with pride. And now that very boy had left me like unwanted luggage. But amid this ocean of pain, a seed of fire grew stronger each day. I whispered to myself, "This is not the end. Justice must be done. My story will not fade into silence. There must be an answer for betrayal." That fire gave me strength to rise, even when my body begged to fall. One evening, a policeman patrolling the station approached me. He asked, "Old man, how long have you been here? Do you have family?" I froze. My lips trembled as I answered, "My son. He brought me here. He said we would go to the hospital, but he never came back." The officer frowned. He shook his head in disbelief. "What kind of son does that to his daddy?" he muttered. His words pierced me, for they were the truth I could not run from. He gave me water, noted down my details, and said, "You cannot stay here forever. We will find help for you, maybe even find your son." That night, for the first time in weeks, I felt a faint light of hope. Not for Daniel's return, but for justice, because no betrayal, no cruelty can remain hidden forever. The policeman's words echoed in my mind long after he left. "We will find your son." That single sentence lit a spark of determination inside me. For weeks, I had lived in shame, convincing myself that silence was easier than truth. I feared that if people knew, they would laugh at me, whisper that I was a failed father. But now I realized something. I was not the guilty one. My only crime was love. The true guilt rested on Daniel's shoulders. The following day, the officer returned with a notebook in hand. He sat beside me on the same bench where I had been abandoned. His voice was calm, professional, but beneath it I sensed a quiet anger. "Tell me everything from the beginning," he said. So I told him. I told him about that morning, the excuse of the hospital, the false smile on my son's face. I described the bus station, the promise of returning, the hours of waiting, the phone calls that went unanswered. My voice cracked when I recalled the kiss on my forehead, the kiss of betrayal. The officer wrote it all down carefully. When I finished, his jaw tightened. "This is abandonment. This is cruelty. No father deserves this," he said firmly. "We will act." For the first time since that cursed day, I felt my dignity returning. Within a week, the police traced Daniel. He had returned home as if nothing had happened, telling neighbors that I had decided to stay in the city for treatment. Lies flowed from his mouth as easily as water. But truth cannot be buried forever. The day they brought him to the station, I was asked to identify him. My legs trembled as I walked inside. There he stood, my son, the boy I had once carried on my shoulders, the boy whose laughter had once filled my empty house. Now he looked at me not with love, but with fear and shame. "Daddy," he whispered, his eyes darting away. For a moment, my heart softened. Despite everything, a father's love is not easily erased. But then, memories of that bench, of those endless nights in hunger and tears, came crashing back. My spine straightened. My voice, though weak, was steady. "Yes, this is my son. This is the one who abandoned me." The officers stepped forward. Papers were filed. Daniel's lies collapsed under the weight of evidence. Neighbors were questioned. CCTV cameras near the bus station confirmed everything. Daniel was charged with abandonment of a dependent parent, neglect, and fraud. When the verdict was read in court, I sat quietly in the front row. My hands were clasped tightly, my lips moving silently in prayer. The judge's words rang through the courtroom. For the crime of abandoning his father in a place unsafe for living, for the crime of deceit, the accused is sentenced to prison. Daniel's face paled. His eyes filled with panic. He looked at me, pleading. Daddy, forgive me. Please, don't let them take me. My heart bled. Forgiveness had always been my nature. But this was not just about me anymore. This was about every parent who sacrifices everything for their children, only to be thrown away like garbage. This was about justice. So I lowered my gaze and remained silent. The officers led him away. His cries echoed through the hall, but I did not move. Justice had spoken. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt lighter. Not happy. No, happiness was a luxury long stolen from me. But lighter because the burden of betrayal was no longer mine to carry alone. Society had seen it. The system had answered. In the following weeks, my story spread through the city. Newspapers wrote headlines like, "Father abandoned by son finds justice," and "Cruelty exposed in court." Strangers began to recognize me, some offering food, some simply placing a hand on my shoulder. Their kindness was a balm to my wounds. Yet at night, when silence filled the small shelter the authorities had arranged for me, I often thought of Daniel. I remembered the little boy who once held my hand, the teenager who laughed with me on long walks. And then I remembered the man who betrayed me. The pain remained, but alongside it was something new. Strength. Strength born from survival. Strength born from truth. I spoke to myself often, whispering into the darkness. No parent should suffer as I did. No child should forget the hands that fed them, the arms that protected them, the heart that loved them unconditionally. And slowly, my story became not just my own. It became a warning, a mirror for others, because betrayal can wound deeply. But justice, though slow, can still heal. When the doors of the courtroom closed behind Daniel, I walked outside into the sunlight. It had been months since I had felt warmth that did not burn my heart. The rays touched my wrinkled skin, and for the first time in a long while, I closed my eyes and allowed myself to breathe. The city moved around me, buses roaring, people rushing, vendors calling out their prices, but within me there was silence, a silence that carried both grief and justice. I did not win happiness that day. Happiness is what I once felt when Daniel would run to me after school, shouting, "Daddy," with a smile that lit my world. That happiness was gone forever. What I won instead was dignity, the truth that I had been denied. At the shelter where I now lived, the other residents often asked me about my story. Some were abandoned like me. Some had children who forgot them, leaving them in hospitals or homes as if love had an expiry date. When I spoke, I did not speak with anger. I spoke with truth. My son left me because he thought I was a burden, I told them. But a father is not a burden. A mother is not a burden. We are the roots of the tree. Without roots, the tree will collapse. Their eyes would fill with tears because they knew. As weeks passed, I began to write down my memories. Each page carried pain, but also carried warning. Perhaps someday, another child would read these words and hesitate before betraying the one who raised them. Perhaps someday, another father would feel less alone. At night, I still prayed for Daniel. Yes, he was guilty. Yes, he deserved the punishment. But he was still my son. Blood ties cannot be erased by betrayal, only scarred by it. I prayed that prison would not only punish him, but also awaken him. I prayed that he would remember the nights I held his fevered head, the days I worked under the blazing sun, so his hands would remain soft. Sometimes forgiveness is not about setting the guilty free. It is about freeing yourself from the chains of hatred. One evening, as I sat outside the shelter, a young boy came running toward me. He was about 12, holding his father's hand. He stopped, stared at me, then whispered something into his father's ear. The man approached and said softly, "Sir, my son read about you in the newspaper. He wanted to meet you." The boy looked at me shyly and said, "I just wanted to say, I will never leave my daddy." Tears blurred my vision. I placed my trembling hand on his head and whispered, "Hold that promise, son, because nothing in this world is more sacred than the love of a parent." In that moment, I realized my suffering had not been meaningless. If my pain could save even one parent from the cruelty I endured, if my scars could remind even one child of their duty, then my story had purpose. And now, as I sit here sharing these words with you, I have only one request. Value your parents while they are alive. Do not wait for their absence to realize their worth, because once they are gone, no amount of tears can bring them back. No weight of regret can erase your betrayal. If my story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own parents, then I ask you, share it. Let others hear it, because no father, no mother, should be abandoned. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, subscribe and stay with me. Your support gives voice to the voiceless, and together maybe we can change even one heart.